Well, hello there, friendos. How are we doing today? Welcome to another lovely cat sermon. And today we're in this is the church that's right after Godric. I can't remember what exactly it's called, but it's really pretty and it's got this really lovely statue that I'm going to refer to because I think it kind of reminds me of the Divine Mother, and that's cool. And we also have a guy here. Isn't he a nice looking guy? I mean, he has robes, and I've given him some runes, and he seemed to be very happy about that. There's also lovely flowers here, and the nature is coming in. And if we look up that way, we can see the really pretty Erd tree. And so I think all of that kind of comes together. Also, there's a blood spot there. Ooh, miracle juice. But today I was going to talk a little bit more freeform, as in I'm not going to keep reading back at like notes and things like that. And I just wanted to talk about a few things that were on my mind recently. And I also thought I would try something a little different by not wearing the blue hood. I think Our Lady is pretty, so why not just have her, you know, out in the open so you can see her? But of course, as per usual, let's start with a prayer. Doop doop. All right. O Divine Mother, please guide us. Guide us from the unreal to the real. Guide us from darkness unto light, and guide us from death to immortality. Guide us so that we can be a light unto the world. Guide us so that we can be a mercy unto the world. So that we can be a beacon of good for everyone to look at. Guide us so that we may know the truth. Guide us so that we may become happy and may have the seeds of joy and the seeds of forgiveness within our hearts. O Divine Mother, please guide us to the sweet nectar of mercy. And O Divine Mother, please be a light unto our lives so that we can be a light unto other lives. Thank you, Divine Mother, for everything you've given us. And please, I beg of you to guide us. Om Kri Mahakalikai Namaha. Cool. Now then, recently, I've been in several religious servers, and this has been an interesting experience, but I've often found that I frequently come back to my own thing, which is experience more than anything, and the belief that uh, activities and being able to perform rituals and be able to follow practices that make our lives better is ultimately better than beliefs. Beliefs are important, but you can believe a lot of different things and not necessarily act on them. You can believe that it's a good thing in this world to uh, act and give like charity and to help out other people. You can believe that that's a good thing, but if you don't actually do it, then what is that belief serving you? Or how is that belief serving you? You should always be trying to strive for actions and beliefs. Your beliefs should try to make sense, but ultimately, I think that the Divine Mother has opened up the way for us to believe an incredibly wide variety of things. She's appeared to us in all these different forms. Some people, for instance, are strict polytheists. They think that there are multiple gods. Other people are, animists. Some people are monotheists, believing in only one god. Some people are, like me, being monists, believing that everything is ultimately made up of the Divine Mother, Brahman, all that good stuff. And people have a wide variety of beliefs. Heck, there was even a book I read that was kind of interesting where a lady was talking about her experiences. Um, I believe that she had an incurable cancer, so they had given her some psilocybin, like synthesized psilocybin, and she said that she experienced God, but she didn't want to call it God because she was an atheist. So she said that there was not really another word for what she experienced, but she said she still didn't believe in God, but there wasn't another word for it. Like there was just like this feeling of utter love and utter acceptance and all these other things. And she said that uh, the only word she could think of for it was God, but of course she's still an atheist. And I find that interesting. Some people are atheists and they have their reasons. Some people believe in a wide variety of different things. Some people are devout Christians, other people are devout Muslims, etc. I don't personally think that the Divine Mother is all that concerned with which path we follow, so long as we try to live good lives and, want to spread love and joy in the world. I think that a lot of the quibbles about paths and stuff like that, those are actually, whether we understand it or not, much more material concerns than what we're actually experiencing. And, I would argue as well that if you look at the mystical experiences throughout almost all kinds of different religions, shamanism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, etc., I think they all point to a common source. We can call that God, we can call that Brahman, we can call that Allah, we can call it a lot of different things, but ultimately we all have this common source that we should point to, and we should attempt to act, with love in our hearts. And I think that's ultimately much more important than getting into, all these quibbles about these different things. The real miracle is humans' ability to strive to be good and to overcome obstacles and build great communities and build communities full of love and appreciation. And that no matter how dark the world may seem, there are always people who were willing to, shine a light of goodness into the world and are always willing to be a beacon of hope for others. That's the real miracle. All these miracles, like, the Jesus walking on water and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I guess that's neat, but that's not the real miracle. The real miracle is our ability to forgive one another, our ability to try and live according to truth, and our ability to, you know, the endurance of the human species, and that despite all of the darkness and stuff that is currently present within the world, like the our ability to still believe in good and still to do good. These are the most important things, and that all these individual ideas about theology and about, truth, and, oh, well, I've come to the ultimate truth, and, this is why I believe this and that. I mean, yeah, you can sit there and have those discussions if you really want to. That's fine, but ultimately we should still be acting properly and still be, attempting to create a better world around us and to live in harmony with the people around us as much as we possibly can. Look, certain beliefs are just going to have to contradict each other if we're just going to be real. Like, you cannot be 100% Orthodox Christian and also 100% Orthodox Hindu. Though there are different beliefs there. I mean, I personally recognize Christ and a lot of his teachings, but for instance, I wouldn't call myself a Christian. It's like a whole complex thing. But is that, like I said, is that the really important part here? Or is that just, another one of our human tribulations that we will have to resolve, and we'll have to resolve for ourselves and get to a point where we can live our lives and believe that we're living our lives properly? Sure, you'd have to get into that, but ultimately, the most important thing is always living well, trying to embrace love at every opportunity, embrace forgiveness at every opportunity, and, attempt to make the world a better place. Better not just for yourself, but for the people around you. That's ultimately the much more important thing here. And of course, I love God. I worship God every day. I pray every day. I chant the names of God, or, like the names of God as presented in Hinduism and other religions every day. I try to live my life in being as good of a person as I possibly can be. And, it's not always easy. Sometimes you get frustrated with people. Sometimes people will just be silly billies, or sometimes they'll at least feel like they're being silly billies. Sometimes you're actually being silly billy. But we should always strive for that forgiveness and always strive to attempt to lift people up and not put people down. And like I said, I'm not perfect at this. None of us are perfect at this. But we can still attempt to be better. And we can always be striving for goodness. We can always be striving to open up our hearts to those around us. And we can always be striving to, try to look at people with kindness. And yeah, it's not always easy, like I said. But there's a lot of different little things you can do. This is just a short example. But if you're going to be talking to someone that frustrates you, you can just, for instance, take a couple of deep breaths beforehand and keep the thought in mind that, yes, this person frustrates me, but they're still a human being who deserve love and respect. Like, or like if you get a phone call, you can take a couple of deep breaths before you pick up the phone. Like, there's a lot of great teachings out there about managing our anxiety, our stress, all of these other things, and getting rid of stress and anxiety. You know, I live a pretty stress-free life. Not that I've never ever gotten into arguments with people or anything silly like that, but I give all of my burdens onto God and ask God to always help me, and it really helps. Like, we can talk about what it means that God will always carry your burdens and will always come with you if you open up your heart to God. But all I can say is I've done that and I've felt and had that experience of God helping me. I have prayed for long hours and gotten results. I've felt the presence of God, and I can say it's exquisite. It's wonderful. And the thing about God, every time I've come into contact with God, I've felt the need to try and be a better kitty cat, run out into the world and try to do the right thing and not do the wrong thing. And I feel like in a lot of cases, it's not necessarily, I'm not going to say it's common sense for people to know right and wrong. There are certain things that you have to really think about and understand and make sure that you're not just giving into your own whims and desires. It can be complicated out there. I mean, there is so much going on out there, and the Divine Mother, her play is so very elaborate and often confusing. But I've also seen that people in the midst of horrible emergencies and wars and things like that can really come together and, try to help one another, or in the midst of terrible tragedies, try to lift one another up. Now, there are also plenty of people who do bad things out there, but I think that rather than constantly saying, oh, well, there's bad people out there, so we shouldn't try, if anything, that means we should try harder. We are the bulwark against terror, excuse me. We are the bulwark against terror and evil. We get to strive and try to do the right thing. And yeah, a lot of it is seemingly insurmountable. There's a lot of darkness out there. But I have found that if we rely on the Divine Mother and pray to her and, pray to God in general and always try to strive to do the right thing and to spread love, life is better. Life is better for everybody. And yeah, you might say, well, it doesn't fix everything. It's like, yeah, sure, it doesn't fix everything. We shouldn't be walking around pretending that we're going to completely fix the world. But even doing just a little bit of good at a time and striving to do a little bit of good for the people around us and striving to do a little bit of good for our own lives as well, trying to build ourselves up and build up our communities as much as we possibly can is still a worthwhile effort. And, sometimes we need to sacrifice. Sometimes we need to put aside our own desires, or sometimes we need to put ourselves in the harm's way to really get the things we want to get. And, sometimes you have to sacrifice your time. Really connecting with God and really improving your life. A lot of people don't realize is going to require some sacrifice. And, I would say that the sacrifice of bhakti, of, like giving up the world and putting all of your efforts and all of your emotions and things on God, is a very sweet sacrifice. It barely feels like a sacrifice. But, there's still a lot of stuff there. Like, you're going to try and live better. You're going to try and, like, give up bad habits and things like that. And, also, if you just want to improve your life just in a material way, um, you only have 24 hours in a day. You're already spending those 24 hours. If you want to gain a new skill or be better in some way, ultimately, you're going to have to take some of the time that you're spent on other things and you're going to have to put it towards improving yourself. And it's very rewarding if you're willing to do it, and if you're really willing to do it and do it for the right reasons. Don't like say, I know in general that I'm supposed to be more physically fit. Like, just saying that isn't enough. What you need to do is come up with actual goals and why you want to be physically fit. What do you want? You need to look at what you want and strive for that. And I don't mean just like, oh man, I want to like be rich or something like that, because you should also look at what you want and why you want it. For instance, just being rich, guess what? It's not very satisfying for a lot of people. You ever read into these lives of like billionaires and things like that? A lot of them do crazy stuff, and you think, wow, that sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. But if you really look at a lot of them are just miserable. A lot of folks are miserable despite their conditions, and that's another thing. Ultimately, so much of your own joy and misery is going to come from changing yourself and trying to align yourself to the proper sources, and like trying to align yourself to God, or trying to align yourself to higher principles. It's not going to come from, you just get more stuff, I know plenty of people who make a lot of money. Some make a really large amount of money. And I've met these people, and a lot of them are still unsatisfied. You're never going to get strict satisfaction and have a better life just because you have more money. And yeah, money can really help with comfort and things like that. It can also really help if you don't feel like you're constantly like living paycheck to paycheck, which is another reason we should help out those around us who are not making as much money. But ultimately, there's still a lot of things out there that are going to bring you down. And if you just run from stimulus to stimulus, for instance, and just constantly pursue that, you're not going to be satisfied. There are much better ways to satisfy yourself. Serving the community around you, getting really in touch with your inner peace, really getting in touch with God if you can. Meditation, prayer, living a deeper life. Some people say that just sounds hokey, but the truth is, it really helps. Meditation really helps. Prayer can really help. And even if you're like, well, I don't believe that God's going to just grant my prayers, it's like, well, sure. There's all kinds of complicated stuff going on there. But if you pray for peace and you pray for understanding and you pray for love and devotion, you'll find that that stuff really helps. It I've met monks who have given up everything and they are very happy. I've also met people who, have given their lives over completely to God. And that's another thing. Uh, Part of what this all entails, too, is divinizing our human relationships. Remembering that, at least from my perspective, like, for instance, uh, everybody is ultimately a part of God or has God within them or is a representation of God. So everybody should be treated with respect. Not just because of that, but also because of that. That makes it easier. But also, humanizing your relationship with the divine. Sometimes I just talk to God. I just like sit down, and if I'm having an issue, I just talk to God. And I treat God like the love of my life, because God is the love of my life. God has given me so many different things and has given me so much to work with and has given me so much joy and happiness in life that, it's like I look at her and I just say thank you, and I say, you're my buddy, you're my love, you're like, I'm truly spiritually wedded to God, and that's been the greatest joy in my life. where it doesn't really matter what other stuff happens. Yeah, sometimes I'm sad, but if I sit down and I really focus on God, God will be sad with me and I can feel the comfort. It's absolutely amazing. But this is what we should strive for. We should be striving to live better lives and striving to help people around us, not just striving to believe the quote unquote correct things. Yeah, it's nice to have beliefs that you think you can back up with reason and all this other stuff. I understand why people do that. But ultimately, what you should really be striving for is creating love in your heart and spreading that love to the people around you. And you should be striving to live a better life, not just striving to, have the correct beliefs. You know, People believe a wide variety of things out there, and no matter how much you think you can justify your beliefs, ultimately at the end of the day, you're only justifying them to yourself. And yeah, maybe people around you will agree with you, maybe they won't, but that's not the important stuff. The important stuff is to, you know, forgive, to love, to hold people, you know, with comfort, and to try and be the greatest you can be, and to not let yourself be beat up by your own mind. Our own minds are very judgmental a lot of times, but what you should instead do is look at every mistake as a learning experience. And a lot of this stuff you might say, hey, once again, it sounds kind of hokey, but hey, it works. Ultimately it works. And I thank God very much that I've been able to get onto this path and be able to understand it. And I thank God for this relationship I have with the divine. It's wonderful. And I would encourage all of you to try and have your own relationship with the divine, and also to try and have relationships in your communities, and to try and care for one another, and always try to care for not just one another, but also this wonderful earth, which is an incarnation of God itself. And this whole universe is full of mystery and wonder. Look at it and see the glory and the wonder of God, you know? That's just my thoughts, and I wanted to share all those things with you today. And I really do hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. And, I hope that you all continue to praise God, or, continue to live a happy life. And I will end with another little prayer. O sweet Divine Mother, please guide us. Guide us so that we can be a light unto the world. Guide us so that we may grow in your love. Guide us so that we may have the seeds of forgiveness and love in our own hearts. Guide us so that we may be understanding. Guide us so that we may be forgiving. Guide us so that we may always look at one another and remember ultimately that we are all part of your creation, and remember that we are all loved by you, and that you are the true divine mother of all reality. Please guide us. Guide us from the unreal to the real. Guide us from darkness unto light. Guide us from death to immortality. Om Kreem Mahakalika Yai Namaha. Okay, I hope you all have a wonderful day. So, goodbye. God bless.